Imagine a life where you have everything, absolutely everything, yet you feel you have nothing. This was the gilded cage of Ethan Hayes, a New York millionaire who was tired, not of work, not of the relentless routine, not even of the money. He was exhausted, down to his very soul by people. For a long time, he had felt it like a shiver down his spine. No one approached him without a price tag, without some ulterior motive. If he said no, even just to see the reaction, the mask of affection would fall away, revealing an icy void. The affection he was given was nothing more than a transaction. And a question began to echo in his mind, first as a whisper, then as a shout. Is there anyone in the world who genuinely cares for me, for who I am, without a glance at my portfolio? This doubt grew, sinking roots into his heart until it became a painful certainty. He lived surrounded by an audience of actors. They pretended to laugh at his jokes, pretended to listen to his troubles, pretended to care. And that, my friend, hurt more than any financial loss. Because Ethan was a millionaire, yes, but he was desperately alone, and no one saw it, or they pretended not to. The idea, an audacious one, was born on a lonely night on his penthouse balcony. Looking down at the city pulsing with millions of lights, he thought, what if all this vanished? If I lost every cent, who would stand by my side? Who would call just to hear my voice and not to ask for a favor? The question simmered in his mind, igniting a desperate need for the truth. He had to know. He could no longer live the lie. The next morning, he called his trusted lawyer, Michael, the man who had known him since his company was a scribble on a napkin. Ethan laid out his bold plan. He would forge his own ruin, simulate a total bankruptcy, sell his properties, disappear from social media, and invent some scandal. Michael, at first, thought Ethan had lost his mind, but seeing the resolve, the raw pain in his friend's eyes, he understood. This wasn't a whim, it was an act of desperation, an open-heart surgery he needed to perform on himself. With the help of his accountant Roger, a man as discreet as a shadow, they began to build the stage for his downfall. In less than 2 weeks, the story began to leak. There were whispers in the financial markets, malicious comments in WhatsApp groups, sensationalist headlines. They said he had made disastrous investments, that he owed millions. It was all a well-told lie, of course, but who cares about the truth when the gossip is so juicy? The most loyal employees began to abandon ship. The partners who only showed up for profits evaporated. Within a week, his name seemed cursed. The phone fell silent. The invitations vanished. His girlfriend Jessica broke up with him via text, saying she needed some time. He knew what that time was, the time it took to find another limitless credit card. His childhood friends. Silence. His own sister, Patricia, who always said he was her inspiration, sent a "Stay strong, bro," and disappeared. Ethan breathed in this abandonment. And strangely, instead of suffocating him, he felt his lungs fill with fresh air, an air of freedom. It was sad, yes, but it was like having a veil lifted from his eyes. There were no more illusions. He was discovering firsthand the true nature of people. And that, as painful as it was priceless. He sold the cars, the black BMW being the first to go. He sold the watches, the designer furniture, the art that adorned his walls. He left behind the penthouse overlooking Central Park and moved into a rented apartment in a Queens neighborhood he'd never set foot in, a place with no doorman, no elevator, no luxury, just him, a suitcase of clothes, and the silence. He started riding the subway again, something he hadn't done since college. He started cooking, or at least trying to. He burned the rice, got the salt wrong, and laughed alone at his own incompetence. He was a disaster in the kitchen, but for the first time in a long time, he felt simply human. He began to observe more. The neighbors who greeted him without knowing his name. the woman at the bakery who asked if he wanted the warmest bread, the owner of the corner bar who offered him a coffee on the house because he looked tired. Simple people with genuine eyes, people who wanted nothing but to share a moment. Over time, Ethan's burden began to lighten. He was free from appearances, from expectations, but the emptiness in his chest persisted. The loneliness was a constant companion, and the silence at times was painful. His 40th birthday was approaching, a round number, a milestone, and no one seemed to remember. As much as he had prepared for it, it still hurt, because deep down, we all hope someone will remember. He decided he would do nothing, just go out for a coffee. But destiny, with its sense of irony, had other plans. And it was on that day, in that corner cafe, that everything was about to change. At first, no one truly believed that Ethan Hayes had lost everything. Some thought it was media exaggeration, others a strategic move. But when he started disappearing from his usual haunts, the story gained weight. His final appearance at his own company's headquarters was almost cinematic. He wore an unbranded t-shirt, old sneakers, his face tired. Most people didn't even notice him. Only Mrs. Davis, the executive floor secretary, stood up with a look of genuine concern and asked if he was okay. He gave a faint smile, thanked her, and walked into the boardroom where he once ran his empire. But this time, no one was waiting. He sat, looked at the empty chairs, picked up his phone, and typed a final message to the board's group chat. "Everyone, the company is changing management. I am stepping down. I wish you all success." He sent it, left the group, closed his laptop, took the expensive watch from his wrist, tossed it into his backpack, and rode the elevator down as if he were just another employee leaving for the day. No one noticed, or if they did, they pretended not to. It amounted to the same thing. The next day, social media went wild. Business blogs crucified him. One site claimed he'd bet everything on a failed clean energy project. Another insisted he'd been swindled by a partner from Miami. No one knew the truth, but everyone had an opinion. The internet loves a good tragedy. Soon, videos of experts explaining his mistakes appeared. One YouTuber even filmed in front of his old building, calling it a cemetery of dreams, and people laughed, liked, and shared. He watched it all in silence. Meanwhile, Michael and Roger, his faithful guardians, worked in the shadows, ensuring his real fortune remained safe and invisible in offshore accounts. To the world, he was finished. Gradually, he began to erase his own digital existence. He deactivated Instagram and LinkedIn and changed his number. His last post was a vague, almost philosophical text about new beginnings. Many commented, "Stay strong," but the words were empty, typed out of habit. 2 days later, no one remembered. He cut all ties, cancelled his membership at the tennis club and the gym, and left his Friday night poker group. He sold his last motorcycle, a Harley, with a bitter taste in his mouth. Not for the object itself, but because it was the last remnant of the life he was dismantling. He then looked for a new place to live. A real estate agent showed him an old apartment in an old building on the 2nd floor with no elevator and no garage. When Ethan said he wanted to close the deal on the spot, paying in cash, the man's eyes widened. The new home was small, stuffy, with a musty smell in the hallway. The faucet dripped, the shower made a strange noise, and the window faced a grey wall. But that first night, lying on a mattress on the floor, to the distant sound of a radio playing country music upstairs, Ethan felt a peace he hadn't known in years. On the 3rd day at his new address, he went to the corner market. No one recognized him. A woman bumped into his cart without apologizing. The cashier didn't look him in the face. The girl bagging his groceries didn't even say good morning. And strangely, it felt good. This is what he wanted, to be a nobody, to see how the world treats someone who, apparently, has nothing to offer. The cash he had set aside for daily expenses began to dwindle, which was part of the plan. He wanted to live like an ordinary person, with no hidden luxuries. The nights were hard. The old mattress made his back ache. Instant noodles made him nauseous. But the greatest pain was the silence of a phone that doesn't ring, of an empty calendar, of a door that no one knocks on. No visitors, no sincere calls, no invitations for coffee. No one wanted to know about the man without money. One evening, he sent a message to an old friend, Ryan, with whom he'd shared an apartment in his youth. Just to say hi. Ryan saw the message and didn't reply. Minutes later, Ethan saw he had been blocked. He laughed to himself, a dry, weary laugh. It was working. The fall, though fake, had been convincing. Now, all that was left was to wait and see if amidst the ruins someone, anyone, would show up to say they cared for him, for real. And so the days began to pass, one like the other, in a grey monotony. Ethan's phone became a useless object, a brick of glass and silence. He still picked it up out of instinct, hoping for a light, a vibration, but nothing ever happened. There was only silence. Those who once filled his phone with messages, news, requests for advice or jokes had simply vanished. The conversations that had seemed so alive, full of stories and camaraderie, had died overnight. He would look at the group chats and see that last seen timestamp frozen in time, a digital headstone for friendships that had never truly existed. Gradually, it became clear. People were jumping ship. There were no formal goodbyes. No one said, "I don't want to talk to you anymore." They were silent departures, subtle cuts, unanswered messages, averted gazes on the street. It was a cowardly way to leave, but it hurt just the same, perhaps even more. One day, he ran into an old couple he knew, Leo and Paula, who used to frequent his home for expensive dinners. He waved from a distance, a smile forming on his face. They saw him clearly, but in a swift, rehearsed move, they crossed the street, feigning a sudden interest in a shop window. Ethan stood frozen on the sidewalk, watching them walk away, hand in hand. He didn't feel anger. He felt a tightness in his chest, as if the air had been stolen from him. Some people did approach him, but only to satisfy their curiosity. They feigned concern, but the question was always the same. "Hey man, I heard, is it true?" As soon as he confirmed he was fine, moving on, their interest evaporated. They seemed disappointed he wasn't destroyed, as if they were hoping for the full spectacle of his downfall. The hardest blow came from his sister, Patricia. They had always been close, or so he thought. When the bankruptcy rumor started, she sent a text, "If you need anything, I'm here." And that was it. After that, silence. He called several times. Voicemail. He sent voice messages. She listened, but never replied. One day, he went to the salon where she worked. He waited outside, sitting on the curb. When she came out, their eyes met. She was flustered, surprised. He asked how she was. She answered hastily, saying life was busy. He offered her a ride. She refused, claiming her husband was picking her up. 5 minutes later, he saw her walking away alone, heading for the subway. Jessica, his ex-girlfriend, didn't bother with ceremony. The breakup came via a cold, impersonal text message. 2 weeks later, she was posting pictures with another businessman. He also tried to reconnect with his father, with whom he had a distant relationship. Upon hearing about the bankruptcy, his father muttered, That's something," and hung up to watch his soap opera. Even the neighbors from his old luxury building, people he had helped financially, now turned their faces away from him on the street. He began to wonder, did I create this world of superficial relationships? The silent farewells happened every day, and he accepted them one by one. Alone in his small apartment, he would stare at the ceiling and question if any of it made sense. But then he would remember the disdainful looks, the turned backs. That was the ugly, hard, but real proof he needed. He found a small refuge in a neighborhood cafe where no one knew him. There, he observed ordinary people without their masks. Slowly, the longing for some faces turned into indifference. He was burying a part of his life, a part filled with lies. And now he saw everything with a painful clarity. It was in this seemingly empty world that something new was about to happen. The alarm clock blared at 7 a.m. Ethan opened his eyes slowly, staring at the stained ceiling of his small apartment. It was no ordinary day. It was September 17th, his 40th birthday. 4 decades of life, and the world seemed to have forgotten him. He got up, the grey morning light invading the cramped kitchen. There were no balloons, no presents, no messages. His phone, tossed in a corner, remained deathly silent. He made a weak coffee and sat at the table, the only sound the hum of the old refrigerator. Memories of other birthdays assaulted him. Grand parties, restaurants closed for his guests, bands playing on his rooftop. Photos of these celebrations still existed online, with captions like "the man of the moment." Now there was nothing. He took a quick shower and left. He couldn't bear to spend the day locked within those 4 walls. He decided to walk aimlessly. He put on a simple t-shirt, jeans and sandals. He walked slowly, watching the city wake up, an anonymous spectator to the lives of others. He entered a small, nearly empty coffee shop with just a few tables. He chose a corner and sat down. He ordered a coffee with milk and buttered toast. That was all. While he waited, he picked up his phone, a final glimmer of hope. He opened WhatsApp. Nothing. Instagram. Nothing. No memories. No mentions. The coffee arrived, hot and comforting. At least the coffee was good. He looked around. A man reading a newspaper, a young woman with headphones. No one looked at him, and that was both a pain and a relief. It was as if the world had forgotten his existence, but at least it was a sincere forgetting. No one was pretending. He thought about calling someone, but the idea of begging for a happy birthday was humiliating. He finished his coffee and was about to leave when a soft voice interrupted him. "Excuse me, is anyone sitting here?" It was a woman in her early 30s, holding the hand of a little girl with curly hair. The coffee shop had filled up, and the only empty chair was at his table. He nodded. "Thank you. It'll just be a minute," she said with a tired smile. The girl, about 6 years old, looked at him with curiosity. She had lively brown eyes and was clutching a doll with a missing arm. They sat in silence for a moment, until the girl asked, with the brutal honesty of children, "Are you sad?" Her mother, Clara, gently chided her. "Sophia, don't say that." Ethan smiled. "It's okay. I was just thinking," the girl continued. "Is it your birthday?" He was caught off guard. Yes, it is." Clara seemed surprised. "Really? Happy birthday!" Sophia turned to her mother and whispered loudly, "Mom, he's alone on his birthday. Can we sing to him?" Clara laughed, embarrassed, but her daughter was already clapping softly, singing, "Happy birthday to you." With a sigh and a smile, Clara joined in. Ethan tried to hold back his emotions, but his eyes filled with tears. That simple gesture from 2 strangers broke him. When the song ended, Sophia asked her mother for a piece of cake. "We're already at our limit today, honey." Clara hesitated, but the girl insisted. Clara went to the counter and returned with a small chocolate cupcake. She placed it in front of him with a makeshift candle, an unlit matchstick. "It's not much, but it's from the heart." He was speechless. Sophia clapped her hands. "Now, make a wish, mister." He closed his eyes. He didn't wish for money or success. He wished only that no one would ever pretend to like him again. And as he opened his eyes, he felt that, on that day in the middle of nowhere, with a cheap cake and a child's smile, he might have received the most genuine gift of his life. After the cake, the birthday song, and that moment he could barely process, Ethan sat there, paralyzed. Clara and her daughter Sophia remained at the table as if they were old acquaintances. There was no rush. The little girl played with her one-armed doll, occasionally flashing a shy smile at Ethan, who returned it, still feeling awkward. Clara wiped a drop of juice from her daughter's mouth with a care that revealed a routine of love and attention. She was the kind of person who seemed perpetually on alert, ready to solve any problem, but without ever losing her gentleness. "Sorry for the intrusion," she said, finally breaking the silence. "We just wanted to make your day a little brighter. I hope we didn't bother you." Ethan shook his head, a sincere smile on his face. "Not at all. It was special," she smiled back, and the world seemed a little less cold. "I'm Ethan." "Clara," she replied, shaking his hand. "And this is Sophia." The little girl waved with a chocolate-stained hand. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Ethan." He laughed, a laugh that came from deep within, effortless and light. How long had it been since he'd laughed like that? They sat there for a few more minutes. Clara mentioned she lived in a neighboring borough, in a small rented apartment. She worked as a manicurist and took Sophia to the salon with her when she had no one to watch her. She told her story not as a lament, but with a naturalness and pride that touched him deeply. "And you?" she asked. "What do you do for a living?" Ethan hesitated. He couldn't tell the truth. "Not yet. I'm in a transitional phase," he said, "starting from scratch." Clara nodded with an understanding that seemed to come from the soul. "I know how that is. Sometimes starting from scratch is the only option." That sentence echoed in his mind. As they talked, Sophia drew in a colorful notebook. Every so often she would show her scribbles to Ethan, who praised them as if they were masterpieces. There was a lightness to their interaction, a stranger who didn't feel like a stranger. Time passed unnoticed. When Clara glanced at her watch, she jumped up. "Oh my gosh, the time! We have to go, Sophia." The girl pouted but obeyed. "Are you coming here tomorrow, Mr. Ethan?" He thought before answering. "Maybe." "Can we sit with you again?" she insisted. Clara smiled a little sheepishly. "Only if it's not a bother." "I'd like that," Ethan replied with complete sincerity. They left, but Sophia looked back and shouted, "Happy birthday!" He waved, his heart both heavy and light. It was a strange, new feeling. After they left, he remained at the table as the coffee shop closed around him. That night, lying on his old mattress, he didn't think about any of those who had abandoned him. He could only think of a 6-year-old girl with a drawing in her hand, and a woman who bought a piece of cake with the little she had, just so a stranger wouldn't spend his birthday alone. And maybe, just maybe, that was the beginning of something completely different. The next day, Ethan woke up earlier than usual. He had no commitments, but he got up as if he had a purpose. The image of Sophia and Clara's smile wouldn't leave his mind. He took a quick shower and went straight to the same coffee shop. He sat in the same spot and waited, a childlike anxiety bubbling inside him. 10 minutes later, he saw them through the glass, laughing. As soon as she spotted him, Sophia pointed and pulled her mother straight to the table. "Look, Mum, he came back, I told you." Ethan smiled. "Good morning." "Good morning," Clara replied, gentle as always. "May we sit?" "Of course," he said. "It's become a tradition, hasn't it?" The waiter appeared, but Clara didn't even look at the menu. She ordered the same as always. Sophia was already showing Ethan the drawing she had made the night before, a man smiling next to a woman and a child holding a cake. "You're quite the artist," he said, his eyes shining. "That's us, silly," she replied, as if it were obvious. "You're our friend now, right?" He swallowed hard. The word friend, spoken with such purity, both hurt and warmed him. It was everything he had been searching for. Clara watched the two of them, her gaze a mix of curiosity and protectiveness. The atmosphere was light, natural, free of any obligation or pretense. Just 3 people in an ordinary coffee shop. After a while, Sophia wanted to go look at the decorated cupcakes in the display case. As soon as she was gone, Clara looked at Ethan more intently. "Can I ask you something? You seem a bit lost." Like you're starting something over, is that it? He thought for a moment. It is. I'm trying. I spent too much time living a life that wasn't real. Now I'm relearning a few things. She was silent for a moment, then said softly, "We go through life thinking we have everything under control, until one day we lose it and discover we had nothing at all." That sentence hit him like a punch. Sophia came running back excited. "Mom, there's a little heart-shaped cupcake over there, and it's really cheap. Can I buy it?" The girl was already giving him a pleading look. "It's cheap, and he liked cake yesterday. We can give it to him as a gift, please." Ethan tried to intervene, but Clara was already getting up with a half-smile. "She's not going to let this go." She returned with a small plastic container. Inside was a simple cupcake with chocolate frosting. "This is for you, Mr. Ethan. A gift from us." He was speechless, looking at the small cake as if it were the most precious object in the world. The lump in his throat tightened. "Thank you, truly." Sophia drew a giant heart in her notebook. "Now you have to promise you'll keep this drawing." "I promise." Ethan took a deep breath. The smell of chocolate, the sound of the street, the warmth of the sun. Everything felt more alive. He didn't know what was happening, but he knew it was real. They stayed for a while longer. At their farewell, Sophia jumped into his arms for a hug. Clara squeezed his hand tightly. That day, as he walked home, Ethan carried a cupcake in a plastic container, a pencil drawing, and a feeling he thought no longer existed: hope. Ethan's routine changed without him realizing it. Waking up and going to the coffee shop was no longer about passing the time. It was about being there, in that place where things, for the first time in a long while, felt real. He always arrived at the same time and waited, his heart leaping every time the door opened. Carla was never late. She would arrive with Sophia, the two of them always laughing about something. They would sit with him, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, without ceremony. And it was in this light atmosphere that their conversations began to deepen. "Do you have kids?" Sophia asked one day while drawing. The question, coming from a child, carried a different weight. "No, I never have," he replied. "I guess the time was never right." Later, Clara brought up the subject again. "Have you ever thought about it?" "Many times," he confessed, "but life went in another direction. I got lost along the way. I strayed from everything that was simple." "And what was simple for you?" she asked. He looked at her with sincerity. "This." She understood. The conversation flowed to places he hadn't expected. They talked about family, about childhood. Clara shared that she was raised by her grandmother, that her mother disappeared when she was little, and that she never knew her father. "When Edward died, I thought I was going to fall apart," she said. "But then I'd look at Sophia and remember she only had me. So I kept going, even without knowing how." Every word she spoke opened a window in Ethan's mind. "I've never lost anyone," he said, "but I've lost myself many times. I got used to living surrounded by people who told me what I wanted to hear, until I realized I no longer knew who I was. When the image I had built shattered, there was no one left, not even me." She listened intently and then said in a light tone, "But now you're trying to find out, aren't you?" "I am." "And is it going well?" He just smiled. At one point he asked, "And you, do you have time for yourself?" She gave a short laugh. "A single mom has no time for anything, but sometimes, when she goes to bed early, I put on some music, close my eyes, and let my mind wander. It's something." "You deserve more than that." "We all do," she replied, "but life doesn't ask if we're ready. It just happens." Ethan admired her strength, a quiet strength without any showmanship. Before they left, Carla asked if he would be back the next day. "I'll try," he answered. This time, when she stood up, she placed a hand on his shoulder. "It was good to talk, really." He felt that touch like an anchor. That evening, On his way home, he realized it had been a long time since anyone had listened to him that way, without rushing, without judgment. It was rare. And for that very reason, it was worth its weight in gold. What was casual became routine, a silent agreement between them. Every day, at the same time, in the same coffee shop, the three of them would meet. Those moments became the highlight of Ethan's days. It wasn't about the coffee. It was about being truly seen, about existing without having to prove anything. Over time, they opened up more. Clara told funny stories from the salon where she worked about her noisy neighbors. Ethan would laugh, sensing that even when she was tired, she knew how to find humor in life. Sophia was involved in everything. One day, she made a sign for the coffee shop that read, "Uncle Ethan's Corner." Another day, she asked for help with her homework, treating each correct answer like a trophy. During one of these meetings, Clara asked, "And how is your life outside of here?" He decided to be honest. "It's different, but for the first time, I think I'm truly living." She looked at him and said something that stuck with him. "Sometimes we have to lose everything to find out what we really have." He just nodded. That was exactly it. In the following days, he began to set small missions for himself: cook without burning anything, watch the sunset in the park, things that would have gone unnoticed before. One day, they accepted his invitation for a walk in the park after coffee. While Sophia played, they sat on a bench. "This is where I breathe," she said. "When life gets tough, I come here with Sophia, watch her play, and remember that everything passes." That same day, she told him the rent was late and the landlord was threatening to evict them. She said it matter-of-factly, but it stayed on Ethan's mind. The next day, he bought a transit card with credit on it and discreetly left it in Sophia's backpack. The little girl's joy was immense. Clara noticed the gesture and looked at him seriously, but she didn't scold him. She just thanked him with a nod and later said softly, "That was clever. I would have said no, but she would have said yes. And I can never resist when she smiles like that." The days went by, and Ethan began to feel that this place, this routine, these two people were what he had always wanted without knowing it. Clara began to change too. She started wearing a light lipstick she saved for special occasions. Sophia began inviting him to school events as if he were already family. One day, it rained torrentially. The city shut down. Ethan thought they wouldn't come, but he went anyway. Half an hour later, they burst into the coffee shop, soaked and laughing. "I told her you'd be here," Sophia said proudly. The cafe was empty, just them. They stayed for hours, watching the rain fall. And in the middle of the conversation, Clara said suddenly, "We like being with you, Ethan." He didn't answer right away. He just smiled, looking ahead, unable to hide how much her words moved him. The third time Clara arrived at the coffee shop with red-rimmed eyes, Ethan knew something was wrong. She tried to hide it, but he already recognized that forced smile. It was the same one he used to pretend everything was okay. After a long silence, she finally said, "Do you know what it's like to be afraid of someone taking the most important thing in your life?" He looked at her, confused. "My daughter," she clarified. "Edward's brother Mark showed up yesterday, out of nowhere, after being gone for 2 years. Now he's decided to remember he has a niece." The name hung in the air, heavy. "And what does he want?" Ethan asked. "Custody. He said he's going to file a lawsuit, that he has money, stability, and that I'm just a woman struggling to pay rent. He's full of pretty arguments, and I have nothing, not even a lawyer." Ethan's blood boiled, but he kept his composure. "Do you want help?" She looked at him, sizing him up. "I don't know yet. I just needed to tell someone. It was stuck in my throat." she continued, her voice low and tense. He knows about some things from the past, some debts, an issue with Edward's name that ended up on my credit. Nothing illegal, but it's messy. He can use it against me, paint me as an irresponsible mother. He has resources. I only have my word and a history of late bills. Ethan listened to every word, feeling the weight of her armor falling away. He knew that any wrong move would make her close up again. Carla, I know one thing. No one who sees you with Sophia could ever doubt the love you have for each other. She gave a bitter smile. That doesn't convince a judge. The system wants to know if I can afford health insurance. He felt powerless. For the first time, money and influence couldn't solve a problem, and perhaps because of that, he wanted to offer something different. If you want, I can go with you when you need to, just to be there to show that you're not alone. She looked at him, surprised. Why would you do that? He kept it simple. Because I care. I'm not used to people who care, she said. When it comes down to it, neither am I, he replied. That day changed everything. Something between them solidified. She began to include him more in her life, to ask about his past. And he began to open up, telling stories from his youth about his fears and failures. One day she showed up with a container of homemade food. As they ate, he felt more at home than he ever had in his old penthouse. That night, they talked for hours about life, the future, and fear. And when they said goodbye, her gaze was different, as if to say, without words, "You're in now." It was a Tuesday like any other, but the tension was palpable. Clara arrived at the cafe with a grim face. He showed up again, she said, without preamble. Mark. Last night, he came to my house, walked in like he owned the place. And he repeated the same story, that he wants what's best for Sophia, but this time there were threats. She looked directly into Ethan's eyes. He said he's going to report me for neglect, that he'll use everything against me. The overdue bills, the days Sophia had to stay at the salon late. He's going to create a circus to make me look like a careless mother. Ethan clenched his fists under the table. He has money, a lawyer, influence, but we know it's not about her well-being. It's about the inheritance, isn't it? Carla nodded. Edward left an investment in our daughter's name, money that can only be accessed when she turns 18. Mark has always known about it, and now that he's unemployed, he's after that money. She lowered her head. He never cared about us. He didn't even show up for his brother's funeral, and now he shows up at my door saying he wants what's best for Sophia. It's disgusting. Ethan took a deep breath. You're not alone. We'll figure this out. I don't want charity, Ethan, she said, distrustful. I'm not anyone's savior, Clara. I just want to help someone I care about. She looked at him for a long moment. He's coming with everything he's got. He'll use lies. He'll hit where it hurts most. He thought of all his connections, of all the power he had, but he couldn't use it. Not yet. Revealing the truth now would be disastrous. Have you looked into a public defender? He asked. I've tried, but if he comes at me with an injunction, I could lose her before I even have a chance to fight back. The justice system is fast for those with money. He then asked, if you could have any help you wanted, without worrying about pride, what would you do? She looked out at the street, thoughtful. I'd disappear. I'd move to a new city, a new school. I'd vanish from Mark's sight. But I can't do that to her. While Clara was in the restroom, Sophia turned to him. Uncle Ethan, is Uncle Mark mean? He chose his words carefully. He's confused, sweetie, and sometimes confused people hurt others. But he made Mommy sad. I saw it. I'm here, okay? And I won't let anyone hurt you guys. When Clara returned, the tension was still there. If he shows up again, it'll be with a piece of paper in his hand. And if he does, will you fight? He asked. She looked at him, her gaze firm. To the end. At that moment, Ethan saw her true strength. And somewhere in the city, Marco, Meeting with his lawyer was preparing his attack, unaware that this time Clara would not be alone. That weekend, anxiety consumed Ethan. As if Mark's threat wasn't enough, his old phone, forgotten in a drawer, buzzed. It was a message from his sister, Patricia. "Ethan, I heard some things. Can you call me?" He called, and her voice was falsely cheerful. "So glad you called. I heard you might be closing a deal with a multinational. Is it true?" That was it. The news that his fortune was intact had leaked. "I was so worried about you," she continued, her voice syrupy. "We should have reached out sooner." A lie. He knew it. Her silence over the past few months screamed louder. And now, suddenly, she remembered she had a brother. "We could do lunch, like old times," she suggested. He remembered the unanswered calls, the ignored messages. "I'll let you know if I can," he replied curtly. When he hung up, the feeling was strange. It was like seeing someone show up at your door with a bouquet of flowers after they had locked you out in the rain. In the following days, other messages started trickling in. An old partner with a new proposal, a friend offering networking. Even his ex Jessica sent a "Hey stranger, happy for you." He read it and deleted it. It wasn't bitterness, it was clarity. The worst part was running into Leo on the street, the same friend who had pretended not to see him weeks before. "Man, long time no see," he said with a forced smile. "They're saying you're staging a comeback, Phoenix style. The guys want to get together. You should come." "I have other plans," Ethan cut him off. The past was returning, but only the opportunistic part of it. He no longer belonged there. On his way home, he got a call from Michael, his lawyer. "I found out how the information leaked, a bank intern." Ethan sighed. It was inevitable. "We can't erase it, but we can control it," Michael said. "But if people keep talking, Clara will find out." He knew. It was a matter of time. And now, more than protecting his image, he needed to protect the only real thing he had built. That night, a message from Clara lit up his phone. "We're coming earlier tomorrow. Sophia has a surprise for you." He smiled. He turned off the old phone and sat there on the sofa, thinking that everything was about to change again. Only this time, he wasn't the same person. And for the first time, he had someone he couldn't, under any circumstances, let go. On Wednesday, the weather turned. The sky was heavy, a premonition of the brewing storm. When Ethan saw Clara and Sophia approaching the coffee shop, he felt a cold knot in his stomach. There was a hardness in Clara's face he had never seen before. "We need to talk. Alone," she said as soon as they sat down. As soon as Sophia was out of earshot, she faced him. Marco showed up again, and this time it wasn't just talk. Ethan's heart pounded. "He went to the salon where I work, talked to my boss, said I was involved with a dangerous guy, a man who went bankrupt and disappeared from the market, and worse, he said you're influencing me to hide Sophia." Ethan's eyes widened. "How does he know about me?" "I don't know, but he's investigating us. He knows we meet almost every day, and he's using it to create a narrative." The knot in Ethan's stomach tightened. "He's saying you got close to me because you're interested in Sophia's inheritance, that you're deceiving me." That hit him hard. "I know Marco," she continued. "He doesn't shoot in the dark. If he's saying these things, it's because he's planning something big." "You believe me, don't you?" he asked, his voice weak. She looked at him for a long time. "Ethan, I don't know who you really are. I know what you show me, but I don't know your past. I like having you around, but do you understand what I'm saying?" He understood, and it hurt. He said he's going to submit a file to social services with pictures of us here at the park. He's twisting everything to make it look like you're trying to take her father's place. "I would never do that," he said. "I know, but try proving that to someone who doesn't know you." She ran a hand over her face, exhausted. "And there's more," He knows you have another phone, the old one. I didn't tell anyone that. Someone told him. Ethan froze. The only person besides Michael was his accountant, Roger. He showed me a screenshot, she said. A message from this Roger guy. Said he tried to warn you, but you disappeared after you got involved with me. Rage surged through Ethan. Marco wasn't just acting, he was manipulating, using details he couldn't imagine anyone knowing. I'm scared, Ethan, because that kind of man, when he doesn't get what he wants, he gets aggressive. And if he thinks there's something between us, he'll use it against me until the end. He held her hand firmly across the table. Then he'd better get ready, because now he has someone to worry about. Her hand didn't pull away. Are you going to tell me who you are? Before he could answer, Sophia came running back, oblivious to the storm. But in the look Clara gave him, a look that spoke 1,000 words, Ethan knew that despite the chaos, he still had a chance. The next day, the first thing Ethan did was storm into Michael's office. I need to know now. It's Roger, isn't it? He's leaking information. Michael sighed, taking off his glasses. It's him, Ethan. The confirmation was like a punch to the gut. He never believed in your plan. He started talking to other people subtly, and someone connected the dots. They saw you with Clara, put it together with the inheritance story, and the narrative wrote itself. Ethan walked to the window, staring down at the chaotic city below. He was in the middle of a mess that was quickly spiraling out of control. I need to fix this, without revealing who I am just yet. That's going to get harder and harder, Michael said. Marco isn't bluffing. I managed to get access to the documents he's preparing. He wants custody of Sophia, and he'll do whatever it takes to get it. Then we'll do whatever it takes to stop him, Ethan replied firmly. That afternoon, he waited for Clara to get off work. They went to a park and sat on a bench. I know you still have your doubts about me, he began, and you have every right to, but I need you to trust me just a little longer, enough to let me help. You talk as if you have a silver bullet that solves everything, she said, crossing her arms. Marco is moving fast. I can stop this process, but you have to let me act. Give me the inheritance details. Everything Edward left for Sophia. I can prove that Marco's only interest is the money. She was silent for a long time. I don't like depending on others, Ethan. But this time, I have no choice. She handed him a crumpled envelope. This is everything I have. I'll take care of it, he promised. Just promise me one thing, she said, looking into his eyes. If one day this is all over and you disappear from our lives, don't take my daughter's trust with you. If you leave, it will hurt her more than it will hurt me. He felt his throat tighten. I understand. That same evening, Marco showed up at the salon again, but to his surprise, Ethan was there waiting. What a coincidence, Marco said cynically. Always hanging around, aren't you? He tried to intimidate Carla, but Ethan stood up. I know you're an opportunist, Ethan said, and if you try to lay a finger on her or her daughter, you'll regret it. Marco laughed, a cold laugh. Mind your own business, because when the judge's gavel comes down, I'll be the one walking away with custody. The only thing you'll be walking away with is a lawsuit, Ethan retorted. When Marco left, Carla, trembling, leaned against the wall. He's losing control. She looked at him, her eyes filled with both doubt and trust. Who are you, Ethan? Really? He swallowed hard. The answer was on the tip of his tongue, but it still wasn't the right time. Someone who's here, that's all. And he stayed there, by her side, as solid as a rock. Ethan spent the night wide awake. His mind was racing, a machine with no off switch. Clara's question echoed in every corner of his small apartment. Who are you, really? What had started as a selfish test to find loyalty had turned into something real, with real people, with a child in the middle, and a feeling for Clara that grew stronger and more sincere every day. a feeling he could no longer contain. Around 4 a.m., he got up, put on his headphones, and listened to a voice message she had sent him days before. Just her voice saying, "Sophia fell asleep smiling tonight. That makes it all worth it. Good night." He listened to it 3 times, and then he made a decision. It was time to stop hiding. It was time to make a choice. The next morning, he went straight to Michael's office, unannounced. "I'm going to tell her," Ethan said without even sitting down. "Everything. Who I am, why I disappeared, everything." Michael looked at him, surprised. "Are you sure? That could change everything. It could become ammunition for Marco." "I know. But if I keep lying, I become just like him, and I'm not." Michael sighed. "Then you need to do this right." He walked over to a bookshelf, pulled out a black folder and handed it to Ethan. "This has everything you need. Proof, documents, the contract for the fake sale of the company. Take it with you. Show it to her not as a defense, but as the truth." Later, Clara sent a message. "We're not going to the cafe today. Sophia has a cold." This was his chance. "Can I stop by with some tea and medicine?" he replied. Her hesitation was long, but the reply came, "Okay, but only if you promise not to overdo it." An hour later, he was at her door. Clara opened it, wearing a baggy sweatshirt, her face tired. "Sophia just fell asleep. It's for the best. We need to talk." He came in, placed the bag on the table, and pulled the black folder out of his backpack. "What is that?" she asked. He took a deep breath. "It's my life, the real one." They sat down. He opened the folder and began to explain, his voice calm. "I never went broke. It was all planned by me. I wanted to disappear to see who would stay, to find out who looked at me without just seeing money." The shock on her face turned to hurt. You faked it this whole time?" "Yes. I pretended to be at rock bottom to know who really cared." She pushed the folder away. "And why did you get close to me?" "I didn't plan it. You and Sophia showed up at that cafe on my birthday. You treated me like a person, not a bank account. That's when everything changed. I swear I never lied about how I feel about you too." She stood up, turning her back to him. "This is too much, Ethan. It's about trust. It's about letting you into my daughter's life, thinking I could finally believe in someone. And you can," he said, standing up as well. "I'm here not as a millionaire, but as a man who wants to stay, for real, by your side." She didn't answer. She just looked at him for what felt like an eternity. "Please leave," she whispered. He wanted to argue, but he knew it wasn't the time. He gathered his things, and before he left, he looked at her one last time. "If you change your mind, I'll still be in the same place. I always have been." And he left, his heart heavier than ever. He had made the right choice, but right choices hurt too. The next 2 days were an abyss of silence. Ethan's phone didn't ring. Clara's messages didn't come. He knew he had done the right thing, but the damage was immense. The worst part wasn't being thrown out. It was the emptiness that followed, the absence, the weight of having risked everything. On the morning of the 3rd day, Michael called. "We need to talk. Now." In the office, Michael's expression was grim. He pointed to a tablet. "Marco was faster than we thought. Look at this." In the video, Marco was on a podcast with a professional setup, selling a distorted version of the story. He spoke of a concerned uncle, an unstable widow, and a mysterious con man who was manipulating her. "He's already in the media?" Ethan asked, incredulous. "Yes, and he's selling a version that sounds perfect to anyone who doesn't know the truth," Michael said, "and people are buying it. An old friend of yours commented on the video, 'I always knew that woman was a gold digger.'" Rage rose in Ethan's throat. "And that's not all," Michael continued. "He's officially filed for custody. His lawyer has included your name as a direct negative influence, using your fake bankruptcy, photos of you two, everything as evidence." Ethan sat down, the floor seeming to disappear from under him. The choice he had made to find himself was now being used as a weapon to destroy the only people who had truly seen him. "What now?" he asked, exhausted. Michael pushed another folder toward him. "This is our response. Documents proving you were never bankrupt. Proof of stability, of assets. But Carla has to accept this. She has to be on your side. Without her support, you're just an outsider with a history of lying, and the scales will tip in Marco's favor." Ethan understood. It wasn't enough to have the truth. He needed her to acknowledge it. He left the office and walked aimlessly, lost in thought. He took out his phone and sent a message to Carla, whose name in his contacts no longer had a photo. "I know you're hurt. I accept that. But Marco is going too far. I need to talk to you one last time, face to face." Minutes later, his phone vibrated. "Tomorrow, same cafe, 10 a.m. If you're late, don't bother coming." It was a chance, a tiny sliver of light. The next day, he arrived 20 minutes early. When Carla walked in, serious and tired, his heart raced. "I saw the video," she said, her voice cold. "I saw the lies," he began. "And I saw how much this could affect you, because of me. I want to fix this," he continued. "I have proof that everything Marco said is false. I brought the documents. But more than that, I've brought myself. No fear, no charade." He passed her the folder. She opened it, glanced at it, and closed it. "Why now?" "Because now you know everything. I have nothing left to hide." She stared at him. "I'm still hurt, Ethan. I still feel used." "I understand," he said, "but I'm also not stupid. I know Marco. He's trying to separate us to win alone. And I won't let that happen." An immense relief flooded Ethan. "I'm going to tell the judge the truth," she said, her eyes welling up with tears. "I'll let him see with his own eyes who the real one is here. The man who disappeared for years and now wants money, or the man who showed up with nothing and gave us what we needed most." He couldn't hold back the tears. Neither could she. And in that silence, they felt that despite everything, there was still a way forward. The family court was an old building with grey walls and a tense silence. Carla arrived early, dressed simply, but with a firmness in her eyes that was her greatest armor. Beside her, Sophia, in a blue dress, hugged a cloth doll. Ethan arrived a few minutes later, no suit, no tie, wanting to appear only as he was. They exchanged a quick look, a nod. Sophia ran to him. "Uncle Ethan, is today the day?" "It is, sweetie, but it's going to be okay." At the other end of the hall, Marco and his lawyer exuded a rehearsed arrogance. "I see you brought support," he said to Carla, glancing at Ethan. "She brought the truth," Ethan replied. "You brought a stage play." The hearing began. Carla spoke first. She answered everything calmly, talking about her routine, her struggles, and above all, her love for her daughter. Then it was Marco's turn. He acted, painting himself as the savior uncle, concerned about his niece's stability. It was convincing but false. Then Ethan was called. He sat down, looked the judge in the eye, and told him everything. The radical decision to disappear, the test he put himself and his relationships through, and the unexpected meeting with Carla and Sophia that changed everything. Marco's lawyer attacked him. "You pretended to be poor. You lied. How can this court trust you?" Ethan looked at the judge. "I lied to myself for years about what happiness was. But when I met Carla, I stopped lying. I didn't pretend for her. I pretended for others. And now I am here as I am, with nothing to hide." The prosecutor asked Carla if she considered him a stable figure. She took a deep breath. "When I was widowed, no one showed up. Marco disappeared. The only person who sat by my side on an ordinary day, who listened to me without wanting anything in return, was him. And if my daughter sleeps peacefully tonight, it's because he is present. Even with his mistakes, he stayed." The judge asked for Sophia to come in. The girl, in her innocence, spoke of the mother who makes breakfast with a heart made of butter and the uncle who listens to her and understands her. It was enough. The verdict was swift. Custody would remain with the mother and the case against Marco would be dismissed. Marco stood up, indignant. "This is absurd. She fooled everyone." The judge silenced him. On the way out of the building, Marco tried one last threat. "This isn't over." It was Carla who replied, "Go, Marco, but start by unmasking yourself and leave us in peace." He was gone. Ethan turned to Carla. "Now you know everything. Do you still want me around?" She took a deep breath, looked into his eyes and answered, her voice firm. "I want someone who stays." And you stayed. Sophia, who was skipping beside them, took Ethan's hand and said, as if it were obvious, "See, I told you we were a family." Ethan looked at Carla. She smiled, and for the first time, he smiled too. Without guilt, without fear, without lies. When Ethan left the cafe that day, his heart heavy, he knew the road ahead would be difficult. Telling the truth could mean losing Clara forever, but he didn't turn back. He was determined to make it right. Meanwhile, at home, Clara battled her own demons. Was I naive? Can I trust again? She looked at Sophia's doll, remembering every moment shared with Ethan, questioning the foundation of it all. The next day, he went to her apartment, carrying the folder with all the documents. He rang the bell, his heart hammering in his chest. Clara opened the door, her face a mixture of fear and resistance. "I asked to come because I don't want to run away anymore," he said, stepping inside. "I'm going to show you everything." He opened the folder and, one by one, showed her the papers that proved his story. "I prepared this for you because you deserve to know the truth. If you decide to leave me after this, let it be with full knowledge." Her expression shifted from confused to hurt. Her hand trembled. "Why did you do this?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Because I would rather live with the risk of losing you than continue carrying this guilt. Because I care about you, and I care about Sophia." Her tears came silently. "I believed in you," she said. "I trusted your heart, not your papers." "I know," he said, taking her hand, "and I know I was wrong." She looked at Sophia. "I don't want you to be perfect, but I want you to be whole, so that I can look at you and not wonder if it was all a game. I promise you," he said, "that from now on everything will be transparent." Sophia ran and hugged him tightly. He hugged her back. Clara rested her head on his shoulder. That afternoon, something shifted. The truth, though painful, was liberating. They were finally beginning something real. At the cafe the next day, the atmosphere was different. Ethan arrived, but the conversation that followed was a blow. "I've thought a lot," Clara began, her voice measured, her eyes glistening. "And even with everything you've shown me, I can't forget that I was deceived." Ethan's stomach clenched. "I tried to see you as I did before, but I wonder if any of it was real, or if you were just afraid to be yourself." He tried to apologize, but the words felt inadequate. "The truth hurt, Ethan," she continued, "and it opened wounds I didn't even know existed. Wounds of abandonment, of broken trust." She took a deep breath. "I need time to see if I can trust again, or if it was all an illusion I embraced because I wanted to believe." At that moment, Sophia entered, quiet. Carla stood up. "I can't," she said, her voice firm but sad. "Today I need to step away." And she left, without waiting for a reply. Ethan sat there, his coffee growing cold, his chest cut open by a silent, painful rejection. The truths he had delivered had created space between them, but they hadn't necessarily healed the wound. He was alone, with the guilt and the pain of watching the woman he loved walk away, perhaps forever. Ethan left the cafe with his world in shades of grey. He walked aimlessly to a park and sat on a bench, letting the weak sun touch his face. He thought about all he had lost, the pain he had caused, the trust he had broken. He wondered if revealing everything had been courage or stupidity. He stayed there for hours, listening to life happen around him. And then he decided he wouldn't give up. Arriving home, he took out a notebook and began to write. Not to her, but to himself. Letters that said, "Be honest, be present, don't give up." In the following days, he made his presence known, but from a distance. He sent a message saying he would be at Sophia's school performance. He went to community events she attended. He didn't ask to be with her, he just showed that he was there, for them. Carla read the messages, feeling the tightness in her chest. She saw the lie, but she also saw a new sincerity in his words, a humility that wasn't there before. One day, unannounced, she showed up at his door. He was cooking. She was carrying a bag of groceries. "I thought you might like some soup today," she said. He let her in. They ate dinner in a tense but less heavy silence. Sophia, who was with them, broke the ice by showing him a drawing she had made, the three of them holding hands. Clara's gaze on him was no longer one of pure pain. There was a possibility there. After dinner, he did the dishes. Small actions, no grand promises. Later, she came into the room where he was reading a book to Sophia. "Thank you for not giving up," she said. "I'm trying," he replied. The next morning, he waited for her at the cafe with a small bunch of daisies. She smiled back. A small, almost invisible smile, but it was there. He reached for her hand across the table, and she took it. He understood that this new opportunity wasn't a happy ending. It was a chance to rebuild. And he was willing to do it step by step, with every small gesture, every true word. There was fear, but there was also hope, a door left ajar for what might come. Ethan woke up early, not to run from the pain, but with the will to do things differently. He looked in the mirror and saw, for the first time in a long while, serenity. He left the house, and his gestures were deliberate, filled with a new meaning. Buying bread, making juice, each small action was a step toward the person he wanted to become, someone Carla and Sophia could trust. When he arrived at the cafe, the evening light painted everything in golden hues. Sophia was showing off a new drawing, a park with a dog running. In the drawing, Ethan was holding her hand, his heart filled with a soft emotion. After coffee, Carla suggested a walk. They went to a park, sat under a large tree while Sophia ran and laughed in the wind. Each of her laughs was like music to Ethan. At one point, Clara said softly, "I've thought a lot, and I've decided to stay. But from now on, I want simple promises, real actions." He nodded. "I promise, no more games. I'll build trust again, not with pretty words, but with actions." She smiled, a hesitant smile, but a smile nonetheless. On the way back, Sophia picked a daisy and offered it to Ethan. He tucked it behind his ear, making the little girl giggle. Carla laughed along. That night he helped with dinner, did the dishes. She let him help. The conversation was about the day, about small plans for tomorrow. Later, when the house fell quiet, Carla came to him. "Thank you for this day," she said. He smiled. "I wish tomorrow could be the same, and the day after even better." She moved closer and rested her head on his shoulder. He put his arm around her. A sleepy Sophia snuggled between them. They stayed there in silence, sharing warmth and presence. There was no magic solution. The scars were still there. But in that moment, there was something new, something solid and real. He knew tomorrow could bring new challenges, but he also knew he was different, and that difference was the foundation of his new beginning. He committed to never pretending again, to being present, to caring, to loving. Sophia fell asleep between them. Carla dozed off, leaning against him. He stayed awake for a few more minutes, listening to their breathing, feeling the gentle weight of responsibility and gratitude, and then, finally, He slept. A sleep without perfection, without guarantees, but a sleep filled with hope. A real new beginning, with the certainty that love can be rebuilt, with simple gestures, with presence, with truth, with the will to stay.